Hey, everybody. Welcome to Carnival of Randomness. And actually, I noticed we have our co-host here. We have Greg.
Hi.
And we have the masked grappler's best friend, John.
Hey.
And I happen to notice you have the same sneakers as I do, John.
I do. Look
But,
at that.
you know, I talk about coffee a lot. And I think, like, my personal blends are whatever I have.
Yeah.
But I would say this personal blend maybe should make me crazy. I am very thrilled to have my good friend Justin Lloyd from Personal Blend on the show.
Rob, I gotta say that was a terribly punny intro right there. I don't know about that.
I thought about this one. Usually I let him go.
He is King Pun.
Yes, but okay, we're done.
Well, thanks a lot for having me. I really appreciate it.
That's a wrap.
Goodbye, everybody.
So the one thing I wanted to ask here, again, we're very blessed in terms of we always have like these music guys, but how did you get hooked into ska, reggae, all this stuff? Because we don't have that as much on here.
Oh man, I started ska and reggae interest stuff before I went to college. There was a ska band from my high school that ended up getting signed called the Miggities, and they've done some reunion stuff. They're back around, but I was this little kid that saw them play and was like, "What is this? Holy shit!" So I ended up getting into it. Went to college, went full deep end style, and been into it ever since then.
See, one of my things, as I say, my gateway music was I happened to go to a good old Night Flight there. Remember the day, guys, and when you couldn't find music and you had to go look for it?
Night
and
Flight.
then Night Flight. They had The Harder They Come.
Oh, nice.
And I got the soundtrack, and you could go whoever you wanted on there.
What a great record.
I consider that one of my top. And then one of my friends got me Peter Tosh's Mama Africa. But then I asked my parents for Santa Claus at the time to bring me Bob Marley's box set.
Oh, nice.
And I just fell for it. And I think it's that kind of music, you get into it, you get into it.
Did they take you to a counselor after that request?
They wondered about that thing, that Boston fern I was growing in my room.
right.
They wondered a lot
fern.
about that.
The elves got it right and didn't bring you Julio Iglesias. They brought you Bob Marley, right? They might have been confused. They weren't too hip.
No, and I had those black light posters I got from Spencer's.
Yeah.
So my parents were wondering. And I remember my mom, I think the statute of limitations is over. It's like, I didn't know you were growing marijuana in your room.
You didn't ask, Mom.
I even decorated like you said it was a Boston fern. You were growing that. This was many, many decades
That's
ago.
a very aromatic fern.
It's got a great bouquet.
But I've heard now, I think John could play this more than Greg, and I definitely want to ask you, Justin. One of the things I've been hearing a lot from people on the show is how hard this stuff is to play. And now, it might be easy for you because you've been doing it so long, but actually my good friend Kev from Moondog's Barrel Age, they do a reggae version of What's So Funny About Peace, Love, and Understanding, and he says, like, the guitar part is the hardest song. Now, to go with that, I just saw Barry Ashcole, who's a really, really incredible jazz drummer at the Bop Shop. I got into some talks with people there. And Barry's whole thing about playing was you got to go for the feeling. You got to go for the feeling.
Right.
That's a sign. I think that's for anything. But I started talking to some people who drum, and I go, what I've heard is like doing the ska beat for a lot of drummers is really tough. And I think maybe because in a way it's simple and you think you have to do more. But talk on that. I have no idea.
Well, it's quick and it's tight. I mean, you have to. I mean, from what I understand, I'm not a huge ska guy, so
I think John does a little more. So he's
Well, I mean, I did a lot of ska with. Well, not a lot of ska. I did some ska with Buddhahood, and I understand the when you know the simple four on the floor, you know, all with the hi hat on the ends. I'm doing my. This is not a video forum, but
we will stop now and I'll get some coffee cans and we'll start going live.
I think you hit on it right
We'll
there,
be back
John.
in a second.
We'll be right back. I think you hit on a lot of it there. It's the simplicity is what makes it hard, and I think a lot of the jazz guys you were talking to would tell you the same thing. It's space.
Right.
It's finding the space and playing the space, and the more simple the music is, the harder it is to play that space. And with reggae, based on a cursory listening, it sounds slow, repetitive, and too simple. But when you listen to it more or you get into it and you're trying to produce it by playing it, it's about finding that simplicity but yet making it interesting, finding a short motive that you repeat that is entrancing. It gets people...
it's very hypnotic.
Yeah,
man.
and you can easily ruin that into a very gentrified, vanilla version of reggae when you don't understand why something is supposed to be short and simple and repetitive.
Mm-hmm. And it was incredibly hard for me to get down because I come from this busy plane of metal and prog rock background as my formative years. And so when I was in a Buddhahood and I had to play reggae or ska, but specifically reggae, it was so hard for me because it's not about physical prowess on the instrument. It's about it's about feel. It's about textures. It's about push and pull. These
well said. Yeah.
Is these things these intangibles that and then of course we talked to Gray about the one drop for rock and funk drummers to ignore the one on the kick drum, and then just drop that bomb on the 3 and add the textures and not let it slow down and the push and pull and the lilts with the hi-hats and it's just, and you don't get caught up in, I'm not playing a lot of notes. You get in the trance of what you're laying down with the other musicians around you, and you become bigger than what you can produce on your own, and becomes this organic thing that just is so powerful, and you let yourself in that river, so to speak.
I'm picturing Bruce Lee from Don't Think, Feel.
Yeah. There you go.
Well, the guitar do the end, up the strokes and stuff, so they support you, and you have room to ignore that one because the guitar is there. And then the bass is usually doing some kind of repetitive.
You said hypnotic, though. I will never forget my one trip to Jamaica. I was in Montego Bay. And at night, you could hear reggae playing from the woods.
Oh, cool.
And it was like
a real deal.
Great scene. But it was so hypnotic. The only other thing was I don't know how they work with those Scotch bonded peppers at the jerk places. Oh, my goodness. There was like, I was getting, my eyes were dripping. But the other sights, I remember that, and I remember a shark coming by a boat and them trying to hit it with oars. Which they literally go out, and the thing was that the fishermen came back in because they forgot their ganja and they had to get it. They come out, and there's a shark.
You got to have priorities, right?
You could see it, but the thing was at night, hearing that coming through the woods, that you described it perfectly, hypnotic.
How much do you think the pot thing really figures into the music?
I think it's the culture, the Rastafari stuff.
I think there's a relaxation process that probably happens when you're creating it and playing it that helps.
Well, did you ever hear Keith Richards' quote on it when he was in Jamaica? He said that, I couldn't believe these guys. They smoked a joint as soon as they got up.
Yeah.
I waited at least 10 minutes.
It's like after my second cup of coffee.
Got to stretch it out first.
Now, I'm going to get yelled at again because I've gotten some musicians on who's like, you play the horn. Like, I play trombone. I play trumpet. I've gotten that a couple. Thank you, Mark Bradley. Okay,
yeah, right.
Thank you. But now you are a something player. I'm not going to say the thing with your mouth.
I am a trumpet player. Yeah, I play trumpet. Good call.
How'd you get it? Did it call to you and say, Justin, you must play me, or did you just? How did you come to it?
I was put through the public high school process of like learning an instrument. Where for us it was in 4th grade. You go down in a small group to the band teacher's room, and they have all the instruments out. And you have like a half hour to like try all these different instruments, and then after that one little session, you're expected to like go fill out a form with your first, second, and third choices,
right?
Which is pretty little exposure for picking the instrument that you're intended to play through school. But anyway, so that it ended up going well for me, and I can see how many people don't flourish in that quick little. But I picked an instrument that I thought was cool, and I ended up sticking with it, and it ended up being cool.
I could see like this lineup, like the teacher going, "Well, yeah, you're fine." To me, you dude, get the kazoo, and then you two just shaking the head. Drums. Oh.
But I mean, any brass player will tell you, like, making the embouchure with your lips and making any sort of decent noise through a brass instrument takes more than 5 quick minutes.
Right.
And then to expect a 4th grader to make a decision on any brass instrument, any reed instrument, within just like the very brief introduction, like, okay, blow a raspberry. Now put this horn on your face and make a noise. Do you want to play that for the rest of your life? Like, whoa.
When I was in college at Nazareth, I had to take methods classes for the education degree, and I had, 3 weeks on this, 3 weeks on that. Okay, I did trumpet for a little bit. That's freaking hard, man. And I mean, trombone was probably the easiest thing for me because it was more relative. But it's not easy, man. I mean, as a little kid, I can't even imagine.
Anybody ever see Walter Werbos? He's played in like hundreds of bands. He played for Sonic Youth a little bit. He was at one of the Bop Shop Atrium shows. He played a 50-minute solo where the spittle was coming out of his trumpet and everything. It just didn't stop.
That's awesome.
I had
Chops
a
of steel
question
right
about
there.
that with the COVID thing. I mean, are there issues with spit valves and things like that? It's like,
Well, it's funny you asked that. I was talking with John about this before the show, where it was like there was all these worries about the aerosolization of the spit coming out of the trumpet, out of the bell. Now, after a bunch of studies at the beginning of COVID, like there isn't that much air push out the bell of a trumpet, but so I play in the U of R Symphony as well, like other than ska and reggae in bands and stuff. But they were not live for their first semester. But second semester last year, we did come back live. So we had to all be socially distanced on the stage, but we were able to put like a little trumpet muffle thing on the end. I call it a trumpet condom. And then we also had to wear a special mask that had a vertical slit like Tidy Whities.
Wow.
And those two things combined was enough for the university and for many other bodies of music to say, okay, this is okay.
Huh, that's cool.
We did have to police up all because the spit valve was a concern for people, and a lot of brass players will get really defensive and be like, it's not spit, it's condensation. And while that may be true, 75% of that liquid that comes out might be breath condensation. That's still kind of, I mean, it's coming out of your mouth. Blow a raspberry against your hand for like a minute and tell me what's on your hand.
Right.
It's spit and it's a lot of stuff. So what's coming out of a spit valve is not clean and sanitary and stuff. So we did have to have precautions about, you can't just make a puddle on the floor.
Right.
Puppy pads are fantastic for that.
Was anybody a wise ass to put a mask on their instrument?
We have to. They make it specially, but they actually said you weren't allowed to improvise a bell mask. You had to buy one that was for that purpose, and we were kind of like, why? And it was just liability, because if you improvised one and then someone somehow they'd be like, well, it's because you tied a sock around your belt.
You used the Pittsburgh Steelers hat.
That baseball hat does not keep the aerosolization to a minimum.
I also would
I
would like to figure out how I could work for a vertical slit mask factory.
I'm the vertical slit specialist at this mask factory.
Meanwhile, in an abandoned vertical slit mask factory.
Did you see some of the stuff?
This slit is horizontal, damn it.
One of my friends saw somebody wearing a hazmat suit at Wegmans. I saw the people with the underwear on their faces.
That's awesome.
Or they would put like the nose would be out, or they would take the mask off to cough on the stuff.
Well, you don't want to keep your cough inside. That's not healthy.
right.
I can't imagine being a drummer, like wearing a mask as a drummer, except obviously the mask grappler. But I could imagine someone saying, how did Bunny Carlos smoke while he's playing drums? I can't breathe.
Just make a little cigarette hole in the mask at that point.
It's sort of like circular breathing, I guess.
There you go.
Not only that, how does he smoke and like keep a 3-inch ash hanging off the end of the cigarette, and he's sitting there shaking around in the ash? That's amazing. I think he stopped that practice of holding the smoke in his mouth, as a matter of fact.
That's good though too. But now you're doing classical too though. So if you're with the symphony,
yeah.
So how would you compare that in terms of like?
In terms of just
playing, just different,
the music's it's a different kind of concentration. You know, you can lose yourself in reggae as long as it's like in an intellectual sense. As long as you're servicing the music and the groove and the unity fabric and stuff, you can let yourself become entranced. You can let yourself kind of go in that regard. And that might answer that question about the pot earlier. Mm-hmm. Some people, and not always, it's not essential, but it can help you achieve that flow state sometimes. Mm-hmm. But classical is more, you need to be a little bit more with it in like almost like a school, like a scholastic vibe. Mm-hmm. You have to be counting, you have to be aware of where you are, and while you are still, every little note you play is still in service of the overall sound. Because you're putting so many more parts together, it's like you're reading a puzzle as opposed to trying to feel out a puzzle. You do have to have that, but it's a little more academic challenge. So it's a different headspace, but I guess in the end, you're still trying to service that same organic sounding end product. So you can do it, if you're too academic, too strict, it then sounds that way. And even classical music isn't supposed to sound that way when produced. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
It totally does.
It's also, too, you're not trying to, like, jam and go off where you go. You're supposed to specifically play.
Well, they weren't studying it when they wrote it. They just wrote it.
Yeah, they just wrote it. It's, making music that sounds free and fluid within the guise of a conductor staying there and trying to keep a very concrete beat is an art in and of itself, and that's what the best orchestras do, is they sound continuous and they sound like solid and holistic, yet at the same time it sounds organic. It breathes when necessary. It doesn't sound like a machine, yet you have to approach it that way when you got 110 musicians on a stage.
Right.
You can't approach it. Everyone be organic and feel it out. That's not going to end well.
Well, you have to pay attention. All the dynamic markings are really important, and you have to adhere to those. And then the conductor's job, obviously, is to, feel that out, too, because they'll bring the orchestra down and bring it up and all that.
Have you two ever dabbled in classical?
Me?
Either of you two.
I have.
Well, the mass drummer has, obviously.
My formative years was brass bands. My father was a Salvation Army clergy officer, and my very first playing was in the brass bands on the street corners, playing what they called the side drum, which was a snare drum, or the bass drum, which is upright and you're hitting it.
Right.
But at 5 years old, I'm out there playing with the and reading music and counting. A lot of times the bass drum part is counting for 17 measures, waiting. So it's not classical. It's similar. It's as far as there's no jamming. There was reading music and being strict to the times. I can't think the things that make you go loud and soft. Dynamics. Thank you.
The amplifiers.
Yeah. The loud and soft.
Turn this to 11.
The loud and soft parts, the fast and slow parts, and when it ends, you all have to end at the same time.
Everyone ends together. No rock ending where everyone just kind of cadences and goes and goes.
Watch me.
This one is loud as Helsiosa.
Yeah. But the difference is when you're jamming and playing our contemporary music, it's all about having your ears on. You can be lost, but your ears are like you assign certain musical cues. You hear the guitarist do that or the bassist go up to that harmonic. Your ears are always on, and it goes to that. It's like the people in the audience say, "How did they know how to do that? When did they broke into that other?" Whereas his symphonic music, the stuff he did in college, that Greg did in college.
Greg's oratorio in G.
Yeah. Well, I did concert bands and things like that in high school.
And marching band.
Christmas music, all that stuff.
But I never on the level that, what do you play?
U of R.
I just played in the U of R Symphony.
Yeah, never on that level. Never in a symphony.
Me either.
Yet the masked grapplers fighting like in Taiwan, overseas, everywhere.
Yeah.
He manages this masked drummer guy.
Yeah.
Never shows up when he's here somehow.
One time. Oh, no.
You weren't here though.
No, yeah, he was.
So we're gonna go. How did you start getting? I'll use the term professionally. How did you start playing around town? First bands, everything. Did I see your first band actually or not?
Well, yeah, my first band, Mrs. Scanato. I joined Mrs. Scanato at college. It was a college band, and that was a ska band. That was the first ska band I was in and stuff. And I did it for 4 years at school. And when I graduated, the band was going to break up, and we had just released something that was on a big national compilation. And I thought that was a bad time to break up. I was like, well, we got a little bit of a push here. Why stop?
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm.
So I asked everybody if it was cool if I brought the band back to Rochester by myself and just kind of got new people. And, you could argue, dude, you should have just started over. But in my head, I was like, yo, we got this momentum. Right. So I got new people and started it again in Rochester. With the last repertoire that we had, I kind of retaught, and that was our jumping off point. So it just kind of kept the name and kept going, basically. That's how I got it here. And then from there, it just kind of spiraled. I would meet new people, get in another band that was somehow maybe in a parallel genre or in the same genre, the same scene. And I just kind of kept kind of networking and going, and everything gets pared down. You end up maybe joining too many bands, and you got to prove it back a little bit.
No, never.
Wait, we all play each other's bands in Rochester? What?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, that's kind of how it went. Just got busier
I know,
and busier.
I always think of Steve Pizzito because and you were in the Beaumonts.
I played in his
him,
band for a while, yeah.
Because I met Steve the same time, because I think
I met Steve.
He played with Megan and all that stuff.
I met Steve with you at Monty's Corner at a karaoke night. We were all very, very drunk. Not that any of us drink or anything. And Steve came,
Those days, well.
Steve came in to a busy karaoke night with a trombone, which at the time I thought he played trombone. Turns out Steve doesn't play trombone.
He likes carrying it.
Likes carrying it around when
I've
out
done
at
that
night.
for years, too.
Oh, yeah, you got your pocket trombone. He walks in, he starts playing a trombone solo in the back of the room to the song that's on, and I couldn't get over it. I thought it was the funniest thing ever, and I asked him to be in a band with me playing trombone, and he tried. And it was hilarious because he doesn't play trombone. I didn't know that. I tried to teach him a couple tunes. I was like, dude, what? He goes, yeah, I don't play this. I was like, oh, Christ. But then I ended up being in his band.
And then were you part of...
I was in Beaumont's with him. But yeah, he has Five Head, too. That's his ska
Yes,
band. Yeah.
Five Head. But this is memory is foggy. Those were the days of the alcohol imbibing. Were you in one night band with him and Megan that night or not? I can't. We played at Milestones. He did like Stir It Up. You were in there, right?
Yeah.
I was very, very not in good shape that night, so I don't remember.
I think that was the thing that I tried to get him to play trombone for.
You did Stir It Up. I remember that song. Everything else is sort of blank.
Yeah, that was awesome. That was amazing.
So it was the best show ever. Yeah, we had a thing called One Night Band. It was Steve, Megan, you. I don't know who else was playing. It was at Milestones.
Nice.
And it was a one-night band.
Yeah.
Yes. It really was. We're going to have them on sometime on Zoom. You'll have to come on.
Nice.
It'll be fun. But yeah, the Beaumonts is hard to describe. I called it like Eastern, like Paris, hot Paris 30s music, sort of.
A lot of it reminded me of like Elvis Costello style with like horns, kind of a horn-driven. I don't know how to describe.
See, that's what Steve. I told Steve that. Steve was like, "Cool, I like that."
What is the origins of ska? Is it England or is it
ska? Is the precursor to reggae. It actually came out of Jamaica before reggae came.
Oh, okay.
Reggae evolved from like early ska. Doesn't sound like what people's mind go to nowadays. It goes
there's
to
a name for it.
The Scatolites is the first ska band, but before them, there were studio musicians in Studio One outside of Kingston, Jamaica, and there was only singles being recorded, and they had a single group of musicians that were playing backing for all of these singer-songwriters that were coming through. And they ended up getting together and said, hey, why don't we just form an actual band? And they were the first ska band.
Oh, wow.
And I'm going to goof this up, but I mean, this is how I think sometimes people don't appreciate it. Because say, name the best drummer, let's say Buddy Rich, Neil Peart. But who would say Tony Nibs? I want you two do know, don't you?
I don't even know who he is. No.
Get out, leave your drummer. But no, he's the drummer for the Scatolites. Yeah, see, now you know. But I think he's one of the best drummers there is. And nobody, but if you mention his name, you're going to get like that niche person who's like, yeah.
I will look him up.
It's interesting because then ska, a lot of times it went through what the people refer to as the different waves of ska. And so ska started in the mid-'50s, really. It was when it started to emerge. It came from Jamaica with a lot of different influences, mento and calypso music, with influencing these musicians who were jazz musicians with the influence of the African diaspora, and they got mento music going on and stuff. But then what they were doing is they were hearing radio transmissions from the south coast of the U.S., and they were covering R&B tunes with this unique mento influence, African diaspora influence style, and that was the syncopation underlining covering R&B was what created ska. And it went on for a while, and it was very optimistic because it was during the initial time of Jamaican independence. And so people were very optimistic and they were hopeful. And then as the next 10 years happened, and it became very obvious that the hopefulness was unfortunately misplaced. And a sort of more of a realistic view of things, the shantytown around Kingston had not been taken down. Those people did not get the jobs they wanted. It started to go more towards a rock steady and then more into reggae, which is defined by a different bass line, mainly different content as well. More political, more realistic, more protest maybe based. The early ska stuff is lighter, it's more hopeful, it's more optimistic. And
is that why it's fairly joyous?
Kind of, yeah. I mean, and then it went with immigrants, the immigrant wave to England. It went with the Jamaican immigrants to England and kind of settled in the West End in London, and it went from there into the second wave, which is what everyone knows. That's the specials. That's madness.
That was one of me for
I was going to say I have a specials album.
That's second wave. That's what people call.
Did you get it when it was on sale?
No, my neighbor. Actually, my neighbor
This
gave
specials
me.
is on special.
No, but my neighbor gave me a bunch of vinyl, and she goes, "Oh, you might like these Buzzcocks, the specials.
Don't
and
be
all
messing
this
around."
Cool
Yeah.
stuff, all this neat stuff."
That was one of my big like jazz fest. I would have like Moselle, but I remember like one of our friends come up to me. The Scotalites are playing,
Yeah.
and it wasn't obviously it wasn't all the originals, but still
They're
played.
still playing. There's only, I think, one guy who is the original. But they're still playing. They've kind of subbed everyone out through now, but they're keeping it alive. It's more
You
of
could
like
hear
a-
from the reggae kid, like with Marley. That's where I remember when we used to sit in a government yard in Trenchtown.
Yeah.
When you get the history, you knew it was protest music. But that's one of the things, like saying Skenato and ska. You have to sometimes pay attention to the lyrics. 'Cause I don't think you can be sad listening to that stuff. And you would write some very dark songs, but you would be cheering them like, yeah.
You got accused of that a lot.
I'm just asking this because I don't know. Is there?
Well, that's why you ask all these.
It's like, is there a meaning to the actual word ska? Is that from some other word?
Different interpretations of where that came around from. A lot
Good
of people
question.
think
I don't know the-
it's descriptive of the sound the guitar makes when it's playing the chucks, when it's playing the offbeat. Some people call that chucking or skanking.
Yeah, okay.
And the
Yeah.
dance you do to ska is called skanking. So a lot of people say the ska is meant to be an alliterative, like the chick, the ska,
Oh, okay.
ska
Yeah,
of the
cool.
guitar.
That makes sense.
And I don't know if that's true or not. It's just it sounds good.
It's good enough for this.
It makes sense, I guess.
But I've seen how you've grown over the years in terms of music too, and I think you've added, like, especially when Skenato became Burn It Up, it got to a more little like punky edge to it. I would almost say. I don't
Yeah,
know if
we
that's,
went
like,
all
best word to
proggy.
describe it, or
No,
proggy a little bit.
Kinda. We ended up getting the lineup that was for the last 6 years of the band was heavily influenced by. We had two guys out of Eastman. We had Evan Dobbins and Mike Frederick out of Eastman, who were heavily influenced with cutting edge jazz and things like that. And then our singer Joe was very into like 90s alternative and hard rock and stuff. So all that together meant we were making the last 2 or 3 records were basically ska records for the kid in the back who's wearing a Dream Theater shirt.
Right.
And it turns out you can't make a touring audience based on that kid, but we had a great time making those records.
Did you ever have the idea with Mrs. Skenato doing something along the lines of like Iron Maiden with Eddie and having like the figure?
Not really.
I was
Don't
just
get me
every
started.
time I was always looking. I was always looking for that during your show. I'd have me come out in a dress.
No, we should have. This is her. This is actually her, everyone. It's
Or did
Kristen
anybody
Turner.
ever ask you that question though? Was Mrs. Skenato?
Oh,
like
yeah.
Pink Floyd or like Monty Python?
I always make a joke. It's the easiest interview.
Where's
question.
Anonymous?
Yeah.
Who's anonymous? Yeah, when we were still an active band, it was always the easiest interview question because everyone could. It was like the layup.
Which one's pink?
Where'd the name come from? And then the answer. It was like almost like a set piece, and it was the best way to open an interview. Just to describe, the.
Unlike my dumb coffee joke.
it works.
Well, one of my things too is like my brother's band New Math. They became Jet Black Berries, and I asked my brother one time, "Why did you do this?" And he said, "Well, because our sound. They early on, I think they sounded like Eddie and the Hot Rods a lot, but their sound changed a lot." And they said, "Well, some of the music we're doing, the sound sounds different, so we thought we'd have a different name." And is that one of the reasons you changed up the name and everything too?
We changed up the name because we were at right before we ended up stopping playing. We were showcasing for some different labels, and the general feedback was that times it had changed enough is that none of the labels were interested in signing a band with a ska pun in the name. And it was totally the wrong decision, but we did it out of pandering. We did it out of trying to change the name to get signed, which we saw at the time was how we were going to continue the band on at that point, because we had all reached a point where we were thinking, hey guys, maybe it's time that we, like a boat, we were just dumping money into the water. It's like we were just dumping too much resources into touring and things like that. So we figured, okay, if we get signed and we actually get a budget from a label and things, we'll keep going. And this was what we thought. The feedback was, we love your guys' sound, all this other stuff, but we're not going to sign a band with a ska pun. So it was very ill-advised. That's usually the kiss of death of many bands, to try to change a name for a label. But we thought we'd be different, I guess, and it wasn't. But,
One thing I'm going to jump
that far though. That's great.
Thank you.
I'm going to jump back for 1 second, just in terms of ska in general. One of my little fun favorites is, I think I might get the name wrong, Justin, the Easy Ska All-Stars. They do
Easy Star All-Stars.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's why we don't rehearse on this show, as you can tell.
It wouldn't be the same if you did. It wouldn't be the same.
We know
if
what
you
we're
did.
talking about, but they will do albums like it's like the whole. Was it Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Dub Band?
That's all they do,
Pink.
yeah.
They do Money, where it's a guy toking the joint for the catch register.
Wow.
I think they do Radiohead.
Well, what they did is they're a bunch of musicians from different bands on the label called Easy Star, which is an American reggae label. And they're from different bands on that label, but they come together as Easy Star All-Stars, and they do projects where they have an album, the producer picks an album, and they record it straight down as a dub cover of the record. And they got really famous for their Dub Side of the Moon one, which can be synced up to the same time, so you can do it like you can do Dark Side of the Moon with, like, the Wizard of Oz. You can do that with Dub Side of the Moon, and they recreate all the space between the songs and all the stuff. And that was their initial one. I think it's like 25 years old now. But they got pretty famous for that.
Yeah.
So they followed that on.
Some of You should actually think about that, like with Susie and Don. Tell her the Wizard of Oz story. I think she would love to do a concept album based on
I'm
the.
sure.
For everybody who doesn't know the story, you start the Dark Side of the Moon when the third growl of the lion for Wizard of Oz, right? And it's supposed to follow the soundtrack. Of the
I tried it once. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah,
I mean, your mind kind of makes connections maybe that aren't there.
I'm not sure whether they're supposed to be there, but
they have. It's on YouTube now. You don't even have to do that. You can just find it on YouTube, and someone already synced it up, and you can watch the whole thing.
Because it gets
or
lonely
you
in
do
your mother's basement.
you find the Masked Grapplers match from Malta on that one thing, and you sync up John Payton's record to it.
Yeah, and he's funny because he's throwing the little people into the audience right on the downbeat of the one drop. It's unbelievable.
amazing.
But that is so. We've been talking about this kind of music, but you a little bit. I mean, you go all over in Anonymous Willpower, and some of that stuff's got like a beat like that.
There's some reggae stuff. And
you ever yell at Susie and they go, "Why do I have to do this? I can't do it. Get Justin."
No, I don't know. I just look at everything as a challenge. If I have to learn a groove or style, I go listen to some music that has that, and I analyze it. And I mean, that's part of the thing of going to school. You just learn, hey, whatever. It's just components. It's just you just plug them in.
He's got this. He's got this great song in Willpower. Cops, Girls, and Guns.
Cops, Girls, and Guns.
It goes from a two-step country to deep trench reggae.
Yeah.
To the two-step country, to the deep, and they're both very convincing transitions, and I love that freaking
That was
song.
done, and I like that because and we had to come up with a little segue part to go from the two fields.
Yeah,
but it's interesting. And at first I was like, wow, this is pretty weird, but then it's fun to play and it's different. So. But yeah, I will mention
you
that.
said
to
a ghost.
Susie.
This is a haunted building. I think a ghost opened the door over there for a second. But now, one of the things, this is for everybody to address, but I've noticed, like, I think, what is, like, in terms of, and I've been doing this with my own, some musical ventures, is there like a limit with, like, in terms of community for music? I know I think there's a big divide between people who go see the cover bands, all that, more power to them, and original music. And what have you seen, like, from the ska reggae community here, like, in terms of, like, crowd? How far can you go before you got to go branch out?
Well, I'm playing in two reggae bands now, Personal Blend. So the two bands I play now, the active bands, I play in an original reggae band, which is more modern, sort of in the style of Sublime-ish, called Personal Blend. And I play in a band called The Medicinals, which is a little bit more rooted in some traditional covers and a little bit more of a rootsy reggae, sort of dub reggae feel. In the general, I think like there's a kind of a weird line in Rochester. It's not unique in Rochester by any means, but we'll talk about it.
But since we live here, that's why.
There's the definite scenes where there's the cover band scene and the original band scene. They have their own clubs and they have their own scenes and everything. And it's kind of like I used to, as a younger musician in Rochester, I'm sure everyone's been through the scene where you look at the cover bands, you go, I can't believe you spend all your time playing someone else's music. Like, write your own tunes, blah, 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 blah. But as you get maybe more mature, I don't want to say as I get older, but as you get older, you look at that and you go, I appreciate your craftsmanship, that you're like what you do to that person's songs. I appreciate what you're doing with your act. And you know what? You're working 3 nights a week. Right. And because I used to poop on what you're doing, but you're financing like that, the 3 nights a week that you're working is your full-time job. You're making enough to do that. Who am I to crap on what you're doing? Right. I don't necessarily have that same view like I did when I first got back from college, where I like you play in that cover band up at that bar by the lakeshore and blah blah blah. Okay, blah 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 blah. But it might not be my scene.
$300.
Yeah. Oh, your band makes how many thousands for a show up at there?
Oh, because you don't have the chops to write your own stuff.
Oh, yeah.
You're not playing in front of 5 people in a little cafe
Right,
somewhere.
man? Where's your
You
integrity?
Suck. You have no integrity.
In my
So,
wallet.
yeah, what is integrity at that point? I don't
man.
know.
As I gain a better understanding of things.
Talking about that, after when I was going for it in the Buddhahood with Tony, and Tony passed, and I was at that point in my mid 40s, and I was going, man, we all were going for it so hard, and we felt like with Tony's death, and the way the band splintered, it was over. And as far as my career as a touring musician, I was approaching middle age, and how much can I keep? So I was like, I want to make the $600 on a weekend playing covers in these cover bands, because I have all these skills, let me put them to use. And I started branching out, and I found that I sucked at it. I couldn't play Pour Some Sugar on Me authentically by Def Leppard, even though simple as it is.
You hadn't put your time into that.
You needed the person to come and pour the sugar on you when you played.
Yeah. But I play covers in JPP. We aren't identified as a cover band. You guys play covers in Anonymous Willpower. You're not identified as a cover band.
Right.
Adriana plays them in Adriana's band.
We pick real deep cuts. We always interpret them ourselves, and it's always heavily mixed with our originals. But I can be myself. I'm not trying to replicate this record.
Right.
And when I'm trying to replicate, because that's what you have to do. You can't. They want to hear them like they sound on the radio, exactly.
Like a jukebox.
Yes.
Live jukebox.
Those guys who make $600 and $1,800 playing 3 shows on a weekend, I couldn't. I realized that I was driving to gigs. Why do I feel like this driving to gig? I feel like I'm going to work. This sucks. It's like I couldn't do it. Everybody can't do it. I feel like I'm pretty accomplished on the drums, but man, that threw some kind of challenge.
No, and you did did you do Games Without Frontiers? I think as a cover.
For Skenato, we did a cover
I think I really like that. I mean,
That
you could pull out songs you enjoy. You could pull out songs you enjoy and do them, because where do you think we got influenced?
Right.
You wanted to play something. So what's the big deal about that?
Well, I've said
big
this
deal
before.
about that?
It's like when you get into the covers world, all of a sudden you're listening to all these different trumpet, guitar, whatever instrument you have. All of a sudden your style doesn't always go with what this person's playing that you're trying to copy. Yeah. And you go, and then you have to step back and go, wait a minute, now my approach is this, his approach is this, and you learn different ways to come at something. And I don't know, to me it's a learning experience. And like this other band that I'm in now, In the Mix, we're doing a lot of like rock stuff, Journey, Foreigner, a couple things, Pat Pan, whatever, all that stuff. But I know there's a fill coming, and I do a fill in the style of, but I don't play the exact fill. I just play, okay, this has got to be exciting here, this has got to be more restrained here, so I just come up with my own things, but they're in the right place. Yeah. So, I mean, sometimes you got to just make the compromise and say, I'm going to just get my style in here and let it roll.
Now, you have toured a little. Did you tour with Less Than Jake or somebody that you opened? Like, you were on national tour somewhere, weren't you?
Skenato did 4 national tours before we ended up calling.
How was that? Now, what was it like going on the road? And how? One thing I've always liked seeing a band I know. I go to some other area, watching the reaction, and then I go, these are my boys, and these are my people. I see this all the time. Right. Unless they throw tomatoes at you, then I'm like, I don't know who the heck you are.
We didn't get that. Our first major U.S. tour was, like you said, we were opening a 4-band package.
My mind, I remember.
Yeah, it was good. No, we were opening a 4-band package of Less Than Jake's 20th anniversary tour, and it was like my high school wet dream, because 2 of those shows 3 of those shows on the West Coast were co-headlined by Real Big Fish and Mad Caddies, and it was amazing. It was like a ska kid's wet dream. But the only thing I gotta say is, unfortunately, one of our kind of reality checks was we had gotten into this thing where we were writing in our rehearsal room and stuff in our own bubble of a lot of I alluded to that, ska music for the kid wearing the Dream Theater t-shirt. We have a ska tune in 7/4 time. That's cool. We thought it was cool. You play that for the 15-year-old less than Jake crowd. We got a bunch of looks like we had two heads and stuff for a while.
Right.
But then that's not to say there's anything wrong with them or wrong with us or wrong with the scene. It was a little foreign and it was a little rough. No one had ever heard of us at that level before and stuff. But we went back around and we did a whole direct support tour for the Mad Caddies, which are an eclectic ska band which make use of Dixieland jazz and bluegrass music as interludes in their ska and reggae, and it's their audience. Yeah, they're really cool. Very, very cool.
You guys are going to steal that idea. I know you are.
And
when you rehearse it next, go Susie.
The wheels are turning.
Texting right now.
We got a little more. Yeah, we got a little more like head nods from that crowd. They were a little bit of an older crowd, and they were okay to take left turns with us very abruptly. Yeah, then we did a full U.S. tour by ourselves, and we had a very mixed reviews. Some people were into it, and other people were kind of like, "What are you doing?" That happened.
But
okay.
I think you have to. This is going to sound like the way I'm going to word it, Spade. You have to expose yourself.
Oh, baby.
Music wise, because some people, in my view, I always try to push local music, and I tell people ask me, what do you like? What do you ask what they like. I say, well, some bands I can't describe, they're just good. But okay, you know what you like. Go see something else you don't know because you may like it, and it's not going to hurt.
But Rob, that's scary. And when I want to leave my house, I want to know what I'm. No, I'm sorry.
It's true though. A lot of people, you don't know how many friends of mine. Like I had a friend a couple of weeks ago, I said to come to a show, and he's like, well, there's an Eagles tribute band playing. I'm going to go see. Why don't you come to that show?
Good, because I know all the songs by the Eagles already.
Like,
yeah, but I want to hear them and sing along to them.
But like I remember seeing your show, one of the first things I saw was look at these awkward dudes dancing funny. I fit in perfect, man. There's a couple of fat guys here like me dancing around, these are my people.
Nice.
But when you play locally too, these are your people. But when you go to like foreign areas, you don't know. It's the unknown. How you're going to be accepted. But how is it, too, then, when you might have some people come up to you and go, dude, do you have any CDs or anything? That was awesome. That's when you make that connection.
You got to carry CDs with you. Yeah. You got to back in the day, this was still like, CDs were still like more popular, even though they were on their way out still. Yeah, we had tons of merch in the van and just always tried to have a nice merch table and try to leave an imprint somewhere. Try to leave 10 people with your CDs so that next time you come around, maybe they'll bring 2 friends each kind of deal.
Yeah, because I think I've been really deep into this topic about building an audience, and I think we all hit like our max here where we see, I love all the people coming to the shows, but it's the same people, and the question of how to expand is just you got to somehow find out how to move beyond the boundaries of Rochester. And we have a big market compared to a lot of places.
Yeah.
The diversity of music here, too, is incredible.
I like to look at our areas more than just Rochester when you're talking about original bands, because you end up getting into the pond is too small for the original music scene in just Rochester. We're this cool metropolitan city, top 30 by population, cool. But when it comes to the live music scene, it is 5 or 6 clubs and a pretty small circle that are people that are willing to do what you just said. Chance it on an original local band when there's the Eagles cover
I've got
band.
that now, too. I go out and the first thing, it's like, hi, I'm Rob. Want to be on the show? That's to do with how I had the one, our friend Frank, who will be here sometime soon. He had some problems. I remember when I met him, it was at Caverly's. I'm hanging out with my friend John Adams. He goes, hi, Rob.
That's a cool bar.
I'm like, who the heck are you? Yeah, we have a vacuumer out there.
Okay.
It's a ska band, right? But
It's a ska vacuum. It vacuums in the offbeats.
yes. But so he comes up to me like, how do you? Oh, I never met you before. He goes, oh yeah, everybody knows who you are in the music. Like, jeez, where's my royalties? But you get a rep being on the scene.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's kind of strange like that. But I think we do that. We try to expand. But I just think, exactly, you have to do. Some people don't.
I like to draw a circle, a 4-hour circle around Rochester, and that becomes more of the metropolitan scene, the greater Rochester scene. Because if you were in New York, that's about the number of people you would have more of an audience. You'd have the greater New York area. So you look at Rochester, but then you got Buffalo, Syracuse, Ithaca, Canandaigua. If you're willing to go across, you've got Toronto, you've got other stuff in Ontario.
Not for now.
But more in general. And you can even push 5 hours to Albany, and you've got Erie, Pennsylvania, and you've got the stuff on the northern, southern tier, the northern part of Pennsylvania. That's the market you got to look at as the original band, and that sucks. You've got to drive 4 hours for some of it. But our pond is just too
But
small.
you know what? I find that very mystifying to me that people don't want to do that a lot of times. Oh, I don't want to go that far. It's like, okay, you really think you're going to get what you're going to get or what you're trying to get just by playing for your friends and
No.
everything that's like
No,
15 minutes from your house?
I
It
call
ain't
it
gonna
road
happen.
trips. Like I'll go within 4 hours, but like I had my thing where Michaela played at Hollow in Albany, Pearl Street. I'm like, where have I been? Let's go. I get to Albany, my car breaks down on Pearl Street, and I had a AAA.
And you're 3.5, 4 hours from home.
3.5 hours.
Great.
I'm like, this is really fun. But I used to love to go on those little road trips, like to Weedsport. And like I said, you're the alien, seeing bands and watching, digging like the people who haven't seen them before.
But you got a new crowd, and that's all those people that and if you're playing a few minutes away from them, let's say you're a half an hour from Weedsport, and so all the people you met at Weedsport they'll drive a half hour. So your audience, you can kind of grow it that way.
Let me give you an example. I was just camping last week in the Adirondacks, somewhere where there's no signal for my cell phone.
I know.
Perfect.
One radio station that came in on the radio called North Country Radio. It was an NPR station. And they had, I would be able to catch news in the morning, the weather, and then they had interesting stories. And we have this very popular act in Rochester, Michaela Davis. And next thing I know, I'm listening to this, and I go, next, a very interesting interview with artist Michaela Davis. And I start hearing her. And I'm in the middle of woods. And
I was at a show in Weeds. I was at the winery in Hammondsport she played.
Well, she's got a show somewhere in one of the little hamlets. And there was like a 20-minute interview with her and playing her stuff. And all these people, listening to this, she's a national recording.
And all those people who I knew them back then, now they won't look at me. They're like, get this guy, security, get this guy out of
He's
here.
a weirdo. Get this guy.
But I'm like a musician on the same scene as her. I'm going, wow, check this out. This is great. I'm 5 hours from home, and everybody who's listening to this might as well assume that she's a national, huge recording artist touring. I mean, she is. She's playing huge shows, and she's young. She's got her whole life ahead of her.
I saw
do some
that,
great
like
things.
I said, that year 2012. As it was the year I met like all the guys in Maybird, her, all of them. Now I'm seeing them leave us in the dust, which is like,
what is the name of the band? Shooting Star.
Southern
Star.
Stars.
Yeah.
When you see the Southern Cross for the first
Super
time. But no, we'll go back to the other little. Now, how did you? We talked a little about your current bands. When this all happened, how the question we always ask every guest now comes on the first time. Then COVID hits, and how did you deal with this bullshit?
Then COVID hit. I was talking to John about this before we came in. It's like both of us play, and this is almost the definition of ska and reggae scenes, right? We don't play in a power trio, or like you can be in your rehearsal room, everyone in the corners and stuff. Like I play in a 7-piece band with 2 horns and a keyboard and everything, with 3 vocalists. We're on top of each other. That room is full of aerosols and stuff. So basically, we didn't rehearse for over a year. None of my bands did.
Did you ever have one of my friends put a Facebook meme up that's really funny about. Did you ever have one of those stages where you were doomed with all your members because it was like for 3 people?
Oh, so many times. Oh, we've done some of the most creative things you can imagine with like, where do we put the horns? Put the horns up in the balcony. The keyboard player's going to stand on the ground in front of the stage, and I don't know. Like we've done crazy ass things to get 7 guys on some of these stages.
You mentioned it. How did it come? Now you're from Skanao, Burning Up. How did it finally come? You doing these bands, and what have you been doing? And explain everything, and we're rolling.
So I joined Personal Blend because on the waning years of Skanado, Personal Blend was on its way up in Rochester and was kind of this up and comer young.
It was percolating.
It was bubbling and churning.
Another coffee reference.
Hey, coffee! So they asked the trombone player Evan and myself from Skanado to sit in a couple times. And we were always crossing paths, not getting able to. We used to have Personal Blend open for us a lot. And finally we did. And then immediately afterwards, Mrs. Skanado broke up. So I ended up just kind of continuing to guest with them for maybe 3 more shows and adding a tune or 2 each time until it was finally... They didn't have a horn section. And they had a friend who his name is Luke Perry, who plays trombone. He's like my co-brass player now. We play in everything together. He's also in the Medicinals with me. But he wasn't officially in Personal Blend either, and it just became the right time because I was out of work suddenly and things, and they wanted to add a horn section. So instead of just having us guest, they asked us if we would join as a section, and then we slowly spent the next 6 months adding horns into the existing repertoire. So that, I don't know if you guys have ever been in bands where you add something like that, but some songs needed to have space created for a horn line. Other songs you had to decide that would hurt the integrity of the song, so you had to have horns horns as keyboard or horns in this background section and not mess up what's going on. So we had to like really examine each tune. So that was a whole process. But then Personal Blend became like my main focus full-time band. And then my buddy Will McKenna, who runs the Medicinals, reached out when he was putting that band together, and he said, I'm putting together a reggae band from people that play in reggae bands all around Rochester and ska and stuff like that, and it's everybody's second band is its vibe. It's not meant to detract from anything. When everyone's got the time, we're going to do, hopefully, bigger shows, festival shows, 5 a year sort of thing, not once a weekend.
Right.
So there's time for that.
That's a good plan.
That'd be
it was
for
great.
like you two putting together like I would just call them your like Ringo Starr all-star bands where you guys get together to play like some various things together.
Right.
Let's just do it, dude. Let's just play this. Let's just do something like this or a tribute or something.
We got together originally he's now passed, but his name was Dave Burness. And Dave Burness was a local guitar player and a very, very influential guy in the reggae scene. Spent a lot of time in Jamaica and really lived reggae, lived that lifestyle purely and truly, and he was sort of the focal point around Medicinals. The band ended up getting together originally to play music for and with Dave. He ended up passing away of cancer, but in his waning years, he wanted to play music and he wanted to be a part of a live thing. So it started off as more of a jam session to play with him that became an act kind of thing. And after he passed away, we do it in remembrance of Dave in a positive way, not in like, oh, let's all be sad now, but in like, let's celebrate why people make music in a bigger sense.
That's awesome.
Yeah, the joy of it. I mean, that's one of the things I bring on here is I think it brings people together.
Yep.
Can
I ask John a quick question?
Sure.
I wanted to know, being a drummer and all.
Well, you would have to know about that.
Well, no, because I can't imagine starting a band. Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I did it once and it was tough. I had another guy that I collaborated with, but that was the one out in California, 80s and all that. But so how did you actually go about, what was your concept and what brought you to starting JPP?
Well, like I said, I left Buddhahood and tried the cover band thing, and when it didn't take long to figure out that's not what the hell I want to do with my skills. With Buddhahood, I had the world beat music, Afro-Cuban, ska, reggae, funk, rock. I had all these things that I satiated me, and how am I gonna? So Drew, who left with me, Buddhahood, and Bobby, who was a guitarist who replaced Tony, left as well. We started just piecing this stuff together. I got my percussionist friend Jim from Riff Monsters.
Okay.
And it's been a long-ass process. I mean, it's 10 years now.
Wow.
And as far it was 2010, and then 2014, my brother passed. And that's when I quit music. So it's 2014 to 2017 was a dead period. Started back in 2017. But it's been with the help of my friend. I haven't done it alone. It's not, but my main dude Drew, we were partners. JPP is not my vision. I always look to surround myself with the guys that inspire me, who we inspire each other. Like I said, to make something. When we're collaborating, I don't come down with, okay, this is the ideas. Okay, I want you to do this. I want you to do this. It's not the name defies the band really. Uh-huh. The name is because we couldn't come up with a name, and I had grabbed all these people from my past life.
Narcotic Lollipop, yes. I'll give it to you.
I
love that name. I wish you could have it. I've been dying.
Yeah.
I told Josh Nesky, Maybird's perfect. Do an instrumental called that.
Yeah. But we were calling it the John Payton Project at practice. And,
for lack of a better name.
Yeah, and
it works. It works good.
I like the JPP
I like
moniker.
it.
Or it works well.
Now we've worked on it for, we've got a bit of a following, but, it was just, dude, the years of meeting the people, and it was a process, man. It was a couple.
You know what it sounds like? It sounds like this show in a way too, because I think the thing that brings it together is chemistry and everything. That I think we get people who just like coming on and talking, and we get the good vibes, and I think you have to find chemistry.
Pure
And I think that's the thing that works with all the band stuff. And the other thing I'll go about, I know the one thing, Greg, come on. You want to start a Billie Eilish cover band.
I do. Oh, I do.
know
And I
you
want to
do.
meet
You're a
her
little
and all
in-joke
kinds
little
of
kid.
things.
But you want John in the green heroin.
I'm going to sit in a dark room and paint my eyes
You want to look
black
morbid. You want to look depressed and pouty. But the one thing these days, too, I think, number one, the recording process, obviously.
Senior Citizen Band.
But number two,
Call them
you
Rebel
can
Yell.
you can get everything. But it's like a double-edged sword. You can get your music up, but there's so much out there. But you can get it out.
Yeah.
Like we get people like listen to the show from Toronto and stuff. So I don't know how they find it. You know, it's like it's weird. Like people,
Because you're so popular. It's because you're so engaging.
Greg, it's these two guys.
Well, eventually, if you do something long enough, I mean, it's going to get around.
Yeah,
It just
people,
takes a
man,
long
I'm
time.
bored. I'll go, okay, I'll listen to this crap.
Yeah, but we were grinding, dude. The JPP was grinding. Those first 4 years, we were playing and playing and playing, and then I didn't realize the following we had built because we weren't drawing great. We were drawing average, and then my brother passed, and I had nothing left for music, and I was officially retired. I'm going out in those 3 years, and people are asking me, where is JPP, where are you guys? And I walked into Three Heads Brewing when they first opened in 2016, and the owner, Jeff Dale, one of the Three Heads, who I didn't have a personal relationship yet at the time, I was coming in subbing percussion for Buddhahood at a show. That's what's going on. And he saw me coming in, and I said, I'm with the Buddhahood. And he says, I know who you are. What's up with the JPP? When are you guys coming back? And I go, I didn't know.
Get out the calendar.
And at that point, I started dabbling with getting it back together. Most of the guys were, Bobby Olson wasn't into it yet, so I had to get another guitarist, but we came back, and then 2000, we just grew and grew. I lost all our momentum last year, but
Everybody
It's
did.
just
I
everyone
suspect. I don't think you're
it's
alone.
it's just a grind. Now we have a draw. I hope it. I'm going to find out if we still do. But it's just how you build an audience, like you're saying, man. It's a grind.
Sticking with it is half the
grind.
battle.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, can I do a show plug, Rob?
Yes.
We're getting down now. This has been cool. Everything we want to do, that's what we're all about. Our thing is plug. So I think JPP's actually got a show coming up.
First plug.
Well, no, you're special, so you're last. He's just a worthless
Right.
co-host.
Man.
So we'll get him out of the way.
Yeah, we returning to one of our favorite haunts, Friday, July 30th. I don't know if this will be aired by then, but
Yeah, we're going to get it on next
okay.
week.
At B-Side in Fairport, we were doing really good there, and then we have a lot of shows coming up.
You got the one I'm going to see. My buddies are playing opening for you, Kim and Roy Style Jukebox.
the very next week.
Yeah, you're playing at Photo City.
August 5th at Photo City with Jukebox Riot. We got another show coming up at Three Heads on October 2nd. We have. I'm going to forget somebody. No, with Johnny's Pub in late August.
Nice.
Ben's Barn Bash.
That's it,
you're
for
doing
real.
Barn Bash.
Come
Yeah.
on.
Yes,
He's
it
the
is.
masked
Reached out to me
grappler.
and I
Sounds
couldn't-
like someplace the masked grappler would have the ring putting guys through glass tables or something.
Yeah,
I was
with
bummed, man.
light tubes and
Barbed wire
vinegar.
on fire and stuff. Hey, Greg, you got to be all around. I know as soon as
but Ben reached out to me, and I tried to get a couple bands interested, and they're like, "Nah, I'm not going there for no money. No, those are stupid times to play."
It is
and
a
I'm like,
great
okay.
thing.
It is. It's a blast.
I'll give you one quick story. There was some now, maybe one of you wouldn't know. There was a place in Pennsylvania, a guy at a festival. My friend went down there, and he said he was a little worried because the one thing, he walked by two guys, and he said, the one guy said to his friend, I think the acid's wearing off. You can give me my axe back. So I would be worried about that one. I would be worried about going to one
lie.
like
I stayed over that thing one time when I played
you
there,
know.
and he has a big breakfast spread the next
Yeah,
morning.
no,
it's
yes.
it's great. You
It is.
eat and you go home.
Nice.
Awesome.
It
You're
goes-
playing all over too, Greg.
Yeah, I
obviously.
got the 23rd of July. I'm at the Spirit Room with this Latrice Fulton, who's a soul singer. and that's like a thing. And then I got the 24th at the House of Guitars with Anonymous Willpower at 1 o'clock.
We hope, because it's
cool.
been pouring at those
who
lately.
knows?
We'll see.
And then I'm supposed to play the second part of that day with Brian Lindsay at Marge's. So if it rains, there goes the budget.
Blame it on Meg Williams. My friend Meg was in. She was supposed to play. She said she brought the rain. They had to postpone. But now, that's what we're all about the pros for our main guest. What's coming up? What's coming up? And then what are you going to play afterwards?
Oh,
Talk
thanks.
about the album.
So I don't have a proliferation of shows coming up. We kind of kept it kind of
Keeping
light.
it light but special.
Light but special. So, Personal Blend, we made this decision where everyone is kind of adding to the cacophony by all cap posting, new shows, we're back. We decided to kind of wait for the first initial speed bump of show announcements to come by, and we're holding off until October 22nd, where we're doing the Personal Blend Holiday Spooktacular at the newly managed and newly released club at Water Street, because Water Street Musical is starting.
Back.
It is back. They have new management. They have new sound systems in both sides. Things are redesigned. It looks beautiful in there. So Personal Blend is going to have our first show back. Friday, October 22nd is our Personal Blend Spooktacular with two amazing local bands, The Sideways and Turkey Blaster Omega. That's going to be really cool.
Is Roman still there doing sound?
I don't think Roman is there anymore. No, I haven't seen Roman around.
Are you going to have any costume specials or any of that kind of stuff?
There's going to be lots of cool special stuff, costume specials, trick-or-treating, alien attacks and stuff. It's going to be pretty cool. But also my other band, The Medicinals, is playing. I don't know if this will be out by then, but July 22nd at Party in the Park. So we're direct support for Southside Johnny.
Adriana Noon to do an own plug. I guess we're going to open for the Almost Queen.
Oh, nice.
On August
cool.
5th at Party in the Park.
Oh, cool.
I'll be at Tommy Burnett's birthday bash August 1st, if anybody wants to go to that, at March.
Well, because you're there, yes.
I'm going to be his
drummer
drummer guy, so whoever wants to come up and play.
I'm afraid to go. I love Marge's. I love Fran. I love Marge. But I love Fran Beth. But the thing is, every time I say I'm going to go, it starts pouring. So, no, I'm not going to that.
right.
Or the I Square shows, because every time I'm going to them, it starts raining. So I will not be going to them.
Just get an alternate personality. Get a mask with a cape or something. Alternate personality.
My Billie Eilish personality. I'll damn what's left of my hair green.
I like it.
But now, what are we going to play from your current? Talk about the CD.
Let's play a tune from Personal Blend's Heavy Currents. We put this out right before the pandemic, a year like the winter before. So it didn't get much. It's been out for a while, but didn't get a whole lot of legs.
And where can we get a hold of you for this stuff? If we want to get one. You have a page, obviously.
Personal Blend on Facebook and everything is the best place to find that. And I'm on. You can always find me on Facebook and everything. So why don't we play the first track eventually called Taxi? Taxi's a good one. Yeah.
Is it ever been like
no vertical slip?
And we have one guy putting his freaking weird mascot over here.
Well,
so we're going to hear. Thanks, Justin, for coming on. Thanks, you two clowns, goofing around.
Hey,
and we're going to hear Personal Blend Taxi. Check these shows out. Thanks, bye.
I gotta go find me a vertical slip mask.
Won't you come and take me?